Projection.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
And we're going to get into it. We got a few things we want to recap, one or two quick things from SmackDown last week, and just a match or two, maybe at the most, from Crown Jewel, what I felt was mostly uneventful. And then we'll get into Dynamite. Did you see Raw? I didn't see Raw.
I haven't watched Raw. I saw the highlights. So the big thing, I guess, was
okay.
We'll kick off with the Austin Theory. He cashed in. We've talked about him on the podcast, how he needs some kind of rehabilitation. He's the first guy ever, I guess, to cash in his Money in the Bank on a secondary title and lose. So I really don't know where you go from there. Of course, and there's the OC is feuding with Judgment Day, the Rhea Ripley, Mia Yim came back. More Dexter Lumis stuff. I don't know. They kind of had to get past this Crown Jewel stuff first, but they're about to gear up for Survivor Series War Games. So it should pick up the intensity over there quite a bit on WWE.
Yeah, well, the thing that I want to touch on first from SmackDown last week was I only saw about half the show. I came in around 8 o'clock, I believe, and didn't see the first half of it. But the thing that stood out the most to me for what I saw was the Gunther versus Rey Mysterio. Anybody with any sense would be like, oh, yeah, this is going to be all Gunther. Which way is it?
It's Gunther. I mean, we're from the South, so it's Gunther.
Yeah, okay.
Gunther. But I think it's Gunther.
But this was, to me, okay, this is the way you present a big brute force like him versus a little guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's both of these guys are fantastic.
Yeah.
We've talked about, even when we weren't watching WWE consistently, we talked about Gunther matches, right? We talked about the Gunther Sheamus match. He's just put on banger after banger. And Mysterio, the thing that's crazy about Mysterio, I think he's 48 years old. You're talking about decades and decades of this guy performing in a wrestling ring, doing the kind of moves that he does, right? That it's taxing on the body, and somehow he's been able to make it work.
And it's not that he doesn't look slow.
No.
A lot of 48-year-olds are just kind of creeping and creaking around out there.
Right.
And he still goes full speed.
I mean, he's clearly lost a step, right, from when he was 24.
Yeah,
but if he was at a 10 when he was 24, he's at like an 8.5.
Yeah,
right
but
now.
It ain't like watching Matt Hardy try to run around.
No, absolutely not. And really, if you want to talk about the most influential wrestlers of all time, I don't see how you can make a list like that and not have Rey Mysterio in the top 5, just for what he did, bringing Lucha Libre to the States and exposing it to a larger audience. And there are moves that guys like him and Psychosis and Super Crazy were doing that were really inventive, that American audiences hadn't seen in the 90s, that are now just completely commonplace.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you see guys do them all the time now. And that's that influence, that's that fingerprint that Rey Mysterio has had on the wrestling business and will always have.
Yeah. I thought it was real solid. It was a good way to end the evening that night. Yeah, I mean, that was I texted you. I was like, this is how you put on a big brute force like him versus the small guy. Like,
what do you think the ceiling is for Gunther in WWE? Is it a world champion?
I mean, at some point, yeah.
I would think so. Like, that Imperium, that entrance, the look, those guys, they look, I think he does look like a world champion.
Yeah.
It'll probably come later rather than sooner, just because Roman Reigns is still around.
Sure, I mean,
there are guys like that, AJ Styles.
And he's good, Gunther. He wasn't there when I started watching it about like 4 years ago. So I feel like he's one of those guys that came in the last year or so, back before I jumped back or dipped my toes back into WWE a little bit. But like, he hasn't been around that long. So like, I feel like you got to make him wait it out a little bit, right? Make him pay some dues. Like, maybe give him, I mean, I don't know.
Well, what he's doing right now is what you do with a guy like that. He has made the Intercontinental Championship mean something.
Yeah.
And when you look back at the Intercontinental Championships history, it's been held by guys like Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Macho Man Randy Savage. It has kind of a storied history in the past. Now, in recent times, it's kind of ebbed and flowed, right?
Sure.
It's meant something, then it's kind of been in the doldrums for a little bit. I don't even think the Intercontinental title was defended at WrestleMania this past year, because I think it was Ricochet or the United States title. Either way, one of those titles. So Gunther has made this title prestigious.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, use this time to build that title back up with him. Just make him unbeatable for a year or so.
I think the purpose of those titles, you give a guy a run, and you just say, let's see what he does with it.
Yeah.
And Gunther has passed that test with flying colors.
Yeah. Yeah, that's we can move on. That's all I wanted to say about that. It was a banger. It was a good lead in to Crown Jewel, I thought.
Yeah.
Crown Jewel for me, I was trying to watch it while I was watching the late window on Sunday, NFL day. And the only one that really, really grabbed my attention was Roman Reigns and Logan Paul.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the big thing. I mean, Logan Paul, there's an alternate history where, he falls in love with wrestling as a kid in Ohio, and at 19 joins a wrestling school instead of being a YouTube star, and he probably becomes the greatest wrestler of his generation.
Look, it's possible. I didn't know shit, really. I think we talked about this on his last match, when you were the episode you were missing, when I think you just had the baby, right?
Yeah.
I had TD stepped in and co-hosted that episode. I don't know anything about him as a YouTube guy. The only picture I'd seen before, I thought he was some skinny little scrawny fucker. Didn't know shit about him. And then I saw the match and I was like, this dude is fucking huge.
He's big, yeah.
And, he puts on a fucking show. The one show, I was like, okay, well, maybe he got some help there and he got built up a little bit by The Miz. Well, fucking he went toe-to-toe with the world champ.
Yeah, and it is the little things he does so well for this to be his third match that there are guys on the indies right now who have been doing it for 5-6 years that just don't get, right? The knowing when to placate to the crowd, knowing when to slow down, knowing when to speed up, the facial expressions. It is just, I mean, he is a natural at this, which is crazy to think about, because we've seen so many celebrities come into WWE and just kind of, they look like they're doing it for a paycheck, right? Or they're doing it for the publicity or whatever. This dude is putting in the work.
You could tell for sure.
Yeah, and again, his third match, and he's in front of 50,000 people, going up against probably one of the biggest stars of his generation, a guy in Roman Reigns. At least when you're talking only about WWE wrestlers, is probably going to go down the top 10, 15 of all time. It's just kind of wild to think about. And then Roman Reigns, of course. I mean, he is. I don't know what more anybody can say about him. He has the presence, the bravado. He's the world champion.
He's real Uzi.
He's real Uzi. Real Uzi.
I mean, you could say he's the Uziest.
He's the Uziest of the Uzis. This also, too, we keep coming back to it every week. Sammy versus Roman at WrestleMania. Who's not there at the press conference in Saudi Arabia? Sami Zayn. Who is the audience chanting for in Saudi Arabia?
Sami Zayn.
Sami Zayn. I don't know. Again, if you think that there should be another main event, I mean, if fantasy booking, if you're giving me the pencil, it's Roman versus The Rock, night 1, and it's Roman versus Sami Zayn, night 2. Then you have a built-in reason. Roman just came off of a huge match against one of the biggest stars of all time. And Sami Zayn, can he pull the upset? Well, yeah, he can pull the upset. And he beats Roman Reigns. And then you, preferably by the help of Jey Uso, so you complete that story. Remember, this whole thing started with Jey Uso and Roman Reigns. So you close that circle. You let Roman, you give him some time off. You let Sami Zayn carry the company for a little bit as a babyface. You throw challengers up against him, and that's how you do it. And then you let Roman come back.
Book it.
I mean, I don't. It's so. Sometimes it's simple. Sometimes these things just fall into place. Was this probably the plan to have Sammy be this over? Probably not. I don't know. You can't. Sometimes you can anticipate these things. Sometimes you can't.
I mean, if you would have told me 6 months ago, he would have been, because I didn't. Sami Zayn wasn't shit when I was watching 4 years ago.
Well, he comes off WrestleMania. He has the match with Johnny Knoxville. What I thought, honestly, was the match of the night.
I need to go back and watch
WrestleMania.
That one.
Yeah. So he has that. And then he starts this thing with Roman, and it's blossomed into, the best thing that company has going for it. So it would be quite a full circle moment to go from a comedy match in Texas to headlining against Roman Reigns 1 year later and potentially and probably winning the championship from
That'd be so wild.
It's crazy to think about. But that's wrestling. This is the beauty of it, is that sometimes, you have these plans, but then the audience wants what it wants, and it starts telling you and giving you hints. And then hopefully you're a good enough of a creative and a good enough of a booker that you can kind of go with the flow, so to speak. And now they got a huge star in the making with Sami Zayn. As soon as they pull that trigger and Roman really turns on Sami and Superman punches him, whatever arena they're in the United States, that place is going to go crazy. And they will boo the hell out of Roman Reigns, and you'll have a very hot heel, and you'll have a hot babyface. And that's when wrestling is at its best, when you have two guys like that one is hated by the crowd and one is beloved.
Hey, Hunter, don't fuck this up, man.
I mean, it's such a layup. Like,
don't
you
fuck it up.
You hope that they don't, but it's such a layup if they do it.
So do you want to touch on anything else from the show, or do you want to get into Dynamite? We got into Raw a little bit. You said there wasn't much.
I like Damage Control and their tag team match. They put the belts back on them and Crown Jewel, so I thought that was cool. And listen, for as much as this show has been maligned for potentially WWE getting in bed with a government like Saudi Arabia that commits so many human rights violations that it does. That's not the people in Saudi Arabia's fault necessarily. And those people in the crowd, regular fans, that crowd was hot.
Yeah.
And it was on fire for the entire night. And that is a big part of wrestling too, is having a hot crowd to go with it. So,
true.
I mean, Crown Jewel, it is what it is. It's kind of a blip on the radar. It doesn't really mean anything. It's basically just, hey, whatever. What does that Saudi prince want to see? Oh, he wants to see Braun Strowman and Omos? Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. It was fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Well, I say let's get into Dynamite. We talked a little pre-show before we started rolling. It's kind of like last week. It was fine. A couple of good moments.
It's not.
It's just 2 weeks before a pay-per-view, and it just leaves you feeling a little.
And that's what I'm kind of shocked by, because remember, they only get 4 of these a year. Well, this year they had Forbidden Door, which was thrown in there, but there's 4 big AEW pay-per-views, and if there's one thing that AEW has done well, it's that the lead up to these pay-per-views has been on fire and just putting out awesome programming. We talked about the lead up to All Out and how great that was for 4 weeks, and then it kind of dipped back down. And it hasn't really recovered since All Out, leading up into Full Gear. And the show just kind of feels like it's there, and there's not really anything happening of note. MJF's not even on this program in the arena right now. He does a promo package, that was probably the highlight of the night, which we'll talk about. But yeah, it was just kind of, I was just watching it Wednesday night, and I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, it's fine.
Yeah, well, I'll point out a couple of pet peeves as we get to them from my end. But the first match started off Acclaimed and FTR versus Swerve and Our Glory, and they're being referred to as the Guns these days, and not the Gun Club. I guess the Gun Club involved Daddy Ass, which is probably the reason for the change, right?
I guess, or, over on WWE, you have AJ Styles, Luke Gallows, and Carl Anderson, which is the OC, which I think is I think those stands for the original club, might not. So maybe they pivoted because of that. Who knows? The Guns are, I think, that's a better name than Gun Club anyway. Yeah. But
yeah, I mean, this is a fine match to start. Acclaimed are always put on a good show. FTR is always gonna bang. It sets up the whole FTR versus Acclaimed at some point.
Yeah.
It was nice that Billy Gunn came out and got to get a few hits on Swerve at the top before the bell rang.
And this isn't even nitpicking. This is just like not being logical. But why? Okay, so he's upset this week, but he wasn't upset last week?
Yeah. Whatever.
It just makes okay, so
maybe he felt like swinging this week.
Maybe 14 days after the fact, he felt like getting a couple licks in. Like, he couldn't find Swerve last week when they showed up to work. You know what I mean? Right. We didn't even have any explanation why he didn't try to kick his ass last week. He just didn't try. But then this week he just tries.
Yeah, it's a fine match to start. That's about all I really have to say about it.
Yeah, it's
nothing memorable, I didn't think.
No, it's not any of these guys' best match. All these guys are talented. At some point, FTR and Acclaimed are going to have to square off. So is it Swerve in Our Glory and the Acclaimed at Full Gear? We haven't even got that announced yet, have we?
I think that's official.
It is official? Okay.
Yeah, I could be wrong. Yeah, I mean, whatever. We can move on. MJF promo was next. This was from an appearance he did on Barstool Sports, right?
Yeah, pardon my take.
Okay, pardon my take.
Which, camera guy, get the fucking mic stand out of the frame. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
It's literally in the center of the frame. Just move it. Or just don't, I don't know, before you start, be like,
fucking
stand don't have it.
Get a different angle, yeah.
But anyway. This promo was I feel like we come on here every week and we just dump praise on MJF to the point where it's like...
What I'm supposed to do. What I'm supposed to do, Patrick.
It's MJF. We don't have anything else to do. But it's like, I'm a big Bill Simmons fan, and he wrote a column back in the day when he was still writing where his dad and him were watching the Masters, and this is at the height of Tiger Woods where he's just running through everybody, right? And his dad asked Bill, he goes, have you ever written about Tiger? And Bill was like, no, because what am I going to write about? Like, everything that's already been said about this guy has been said. Like, it's too good at this point to be able to come out and try to string words together to say how good it is. Like, I genuinely believe, and I'm not even joking, and I'm not being, I'm not exaggerating for effect here. I think this dude is going to be the best wrestler of all time.
I mean,
if I had poker chips, I'm pushing it down. I'm doubling down on my bet. Each week, I get more and more confident.
I think barring any sort of major setback, like an injury or something, or he says fuck it and decides he's going to go into movies or something first.
Yeah, which he get a little cameo role in the Zac Efron thing.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't argue with you.
It's everything. Like, I've tweeted out this before. Like, if you wanted to know what Ric Flair would look like with the modern day media, it's MJF. And MJF did something very smart in that promo, which pat ourselves on the back a little bit. I think it's something we've talked about, and we mentioned these names a couple weeks ago. We were talking about MJF. He mentioned Bruno Sammartino. He mentioned Ric Flair. He mentioned The Rock. He mentioned Stone Cold. He put himself in that upper echelon, that legendary status of professional wrestling, where he's like, I belong with that, and it's mine. This is mine for the taking, and it starts at Full Gear. Like, it's masterful stuff, and it's coming from a guy who hasn't been in the business that long. But he feels like he's been doing this for forever.
A really interesting angle I thought last night was how he was talking about he's always been overshadowed, His match with Cody was overshadowed by the neck tattoo.
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
Yep.
Right? And then he was like, my return at Full Gear was overshadowed by a backstage brawl.
Yeah.
Fucking brilliant.
Yeah, because he's finally pointing out stuff that we know, right? And stuff that fans like us talk about.
Yeah.
And even, too, just having the wherewithal to praise your opponent at Full Gear and not, belittle them, while at the same time keeping up that arrogance, right? Where he tells Jon Moxley, like, oh, you weren't born athletic. You weren't born this way, but kudos to you. You made yourself into the best wrestler of today. But guess what? I was born for this, and I'm going to become the greatest wrestler alive today and take it from you. It's just, I mean, we could just keep going on and on, but I mean, he's the best. We talked about it last week. There's 3 guys right now in professional wrestling that are the best. It's Roman Reigns, it's MJF, it's Sami Zayn, and whichever order you want to put those guys in. Those are the 3 guys that are doing it the best right now.
They the ones.
And it's kind of not. Look, we both love Jon Moxley, and he also had a very fine promo in this Dynamite Wednesday. Sammy, Roman, and MJF are kind of lapping the field in wrestling right now. It's kind of like they kind of have no equals, and it's not really close, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, MJF was off for a few months, so he comes back. He's got the fire, right?
Yeah.
He's ready. Moxley might just be a little tired. And it's not that Moxley's been bad. Moxley's fucking Moxley. He's fucking great every time he's on TV.
Yeah,
but he might just be a little fucking tired right now.
And even in Moxley, what you're talking about is you're talking about a difference between, like, Moxley is, you know, how are we going to put, he might go down top 20, top 25 of all time when it's all said and done. It's really going to depend on how much AEW continues to grow and him being the person that was the real torchbearer for this company when it first started. But MJF has that one-of-one potential. He's got that top 2, top 3 of all time potential. So it's just a difference there.
Yeah.
But I like both of these guys a lot, and I hope the match at Full Gear is good.
You know Moxley's going to bleed.
Well, both of them might. We might get both of them.
That's true. So the next thing I want to talk about, something that made me happy, was seeing Eddie Kingston back on TV last night. He faced off in Ethan Page in the Eliminator tournament, I guess. I don't know what the point of this is, because if they put the belt on MJF in 2 weeks at the pay-per-view, then they're just going to let somebody get their ass whooped.
Well, and it'll be Ethan Page. It seems like that's where they're going.
Yeah.
You don't have Ethan Page beat Kingston this early in the tournament unless Ethan Page is going to be the guy that wins it.
Yeah.
At the end. Because MJF needs somebody when he wins, presumably when he wins the belt in 2 weeks. You're going to need to start running guys up against him, and you necessarily don't want to start. I mean, Hangman is hurt. You probably don't want to restart the Moxley thing. I would assume they probably write Moxley off TV for a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean,
give the guy a vacation. Let him take Christmas off.
Yeah, they owe him a fucking vacation.
I mean, Jesus Christ. So you write him off TV for a couple months. So in that meantime, you're going to need, like, winter is coming. Will be December the 14th. You're going to need somebody to go up against MJF, and why not be Ethan Page?
Yeah.
Because MJF, I think, is going to be a babyface. I mean, he's already being treated as such by the audience. He damn sure is going to be that in 2 weeks when he walks into New Jersey.
Yeah, they look. The pay-per-view is in his home place, right?
Yeah.
There ain't no way they don't put the belt on him.
Yeah, I don't foresee, even if something, schmozzy happens and the firm gets back involved with the match, I don't see how they don't put that thing on MJF. But yeah, I mean, but going back to this match here with Kingston, this is why you do this match, so that Ethan Page has a win over a credible opponent. That way, when he looks like he belongs when he goes up against MJF here in the near future, I would guess.
Yeah.
We've seen stranger things happen with AEW where they've done some shit where we're like, all right, well, in hindsight, that makes no sense now because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. But
I thought he knocked Kingston out cold at one point. Early in the match, I was like, oh, he about killed my man's Eddie.
Eddie has been off TV for a while now and still gets huge reactions. I mean, at some point you have to think that materializes, right, into some big-time run, probably for the world title. I don't know. He has a very Dusty Rhodes-esque quality about him. But they just haven't done... Has he won any title?
No.
I mean, not even TNT title, not a tag championship, nothing. I mean, all right.
His first match obviously was against Cody for the TNT title.
Yeah. People didn't know who he was
Yeah.
then, really. I mean, that was the match that got him his job.
His job.
I mean, now he is he gets one of the top reactions from anybody in AEW, and it just seems like they don't really know what to do with him.
You could put him in a trios, run or something maybe. I mean, you don't.
Unless your plan is you want to hold off and have the first title that Eddie wins be the world title.
How sweet would that be?
I'm not. Yeah, it would be sweet, and I'm not mad at it. But in the meantime, can we tell some kind of story with him? Does he have to just be?
Yeah.
Do we have to just put him on the shelf till we decide we're going to tell that story
Yeah,
in
that's
8
true.
months? Like, he can be doing other things. You can have stories that don't involve titles.
True.
It's fiction. Make it up.
There's plenty of people backstage that he hates. You could put some matches
Both maybe in kayfabe and out of kayfabe.
for real, yeah. Just make that shit into some matches. So the next thing is basically a setup for a turn. Wardlow versus Ari Daivari. The whole point of this match basically was to let Samoa Joe turn on Wardlow afterwards, because afterwards Wardlow's beat the shit out of Daivari. He says, I'm gonna win every title in this company, and Samoa Joe's standing behind him, and he's like, "No,
Yeah.
cuz I'm holding one of these titles," and then clocks him over the head with it. That's fine. Neither one of us really thought that the War Joe thing was working out. Like, what was the point of that?
Right.
I feel like Wardlow and Hobbs are going to put on a banger when it's their time in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Well, you would think now it's going to be a triple threat, right?
I guess, yeah, right?
Yeah, which that's the impression I got from it. Maybe it's the wrong impression, but if you have those three guys and they're all in the ring and neither one of them are aligned with each other anymore, why not put them in a triple threat?
Yeah, I guess you could.
I mean, this Wardlow thing was stupid when they did it. It's even dumber now because you could have just done this. You could have just had Samoa Joe turn on Wardlow or hit him in the head with a title weeks ago. We didn't have to go through all this Wardlow tag team stuff.
Yeah, true.
Where they're doing promos with each other and they act like they're best friends and they've been a tag team for forever. It's like these dudes just met.
Like a month ago.
Yeah, Samoa Joe just came in the company. So and also, does that make Wardlow? There's a big running joke with the internet wrestling community. Is Sting the dumbest wrestler of all time? Because Sting was forever a babyface, and he would constantly be in these tag teams with guys who would just turn their back on him and betray him. I mean, Wardlow now is approaching that territory because if he did not think that this was coming down the pike at some point, then yeah, in character-wise, he's got to be a pretty big
Dumber
idiot.
than Sting.
Yeah. I mean, he's literally walking backstage up the ramp, and Samoa Joe's hanging out like a gangster in a 1950s movie. Like, you're walking down the wrong alley, kid. He's literally staring him down as he goes.
That's funny.
And then, yeah, does he not know anything? And then the announcer's acting all surprised. I mean, my God,
yeah.
I wish some of the announcers sometimes would not be, it is their job to put stuff over. So they kind of have to act more, be a little bit more exaggerated in whatever it is they're supposed to do, right? So if they're supposed to be surprised, they're supposed to be really surprised. If they're supposed to be angry, they're supposed to be really angry. I just wish somebody like Taz last night would have been like, "Oh yeah, I saw this coming."
So did they are they always in the know, or like sometimes there's for real surprises? Like, because am I crazy, or did I read somewhere that like Tony Schiavone had no idea that Sting was going to be there the first time that Sting popped up on AEW?
Oh, you talking about like the actual
Yeah.
like the people, not the characters that are.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about like the commentators, but like just don't have a fucking clue.
Oh, sometimes, yeah. I mean, I think Pat McAfee's talked about how he didn't want to really be in the know for a lot of the stuff. Now, there are some things, right, where the production crew is going to be like, they have to tell you something to tip you off because you're a part of that storytelling that's going to take place on the screen. Somebody like Excalibur probably knows quite a bit, I would guess him, because he's doing the heavy lifting.
Right.
With
and you got to know people's names. Like, if somebody comes out for the first time, like, you don't want to call them Soraya.
Well, which would lend to your point that they
Well,
probably don't know what the hell's happening
yeah,
then
that's
if you
true.
don't even get the pronunciations right.
True.
But yeah, it's probably some mixture of something like that last night. They probably knew.
Yeah.
But surprises like Sting or any kind of big turn, if it was a big turn that was a swerve that not even the fans saw coming, because let's be honest, we all saw this coming,
Yeah.
right? There was no surprise here.
Yeah, as soon as he said that, I was like, well, he's fixing to get knocked out.
Yeah. So, they probably knew what was going to happen with
Yeah.
that last night. But
So-
this was it was idiotic.
Yeah. The next thing of the night, the next segment was Saraya and Britt Baker face off in the ring, which I thought was one of the highlights of the evening. Both of them just A+, fucking killed it. It was great.
It made you want to see the match.
Yeah.
Right? Which is all these promos are supposed to do, is to get you to want to see these two people get into a physical altercation with each other. And that's what they did last night. Saraya played the role of the babyface perfectly. She talked about things that was already out there in the ether, right? Her drug addiction.
Yeah, she got real emotional, and I was like,
Yeah.
damn, she's either she's acting her ass off, or she's for real, like, touched.
The pictures and the sex tape and all that stuff that leaked out about her. That was the humiliated in front of millions of people. So all that stuff is, it helps garner some sympathy for you from the audience. And then Britt played her part perfectly, where she is, both people have to be right in those scenarios, right? So Saraya is right that she is the one that's kind of started revolutions before it became a catchphrase, I think was her line she used. And that was true. Like in NXT, she really was the first woman that kind of broke the mold for that diva. Britt Baker's also right, though, right? Where she was talking about, hey, I've been here for 3-4 years.
And you
I'm
come
the
in
one.
talking about, this is my house.
And you come in and this ain't your house. Like, I'm the one that laid all these bricks. Well, she's right there too. And now that makes for compelling narratives, because now there isn't a straight up good and bad side. There's a lot of gray there. And that's where things can get really interesting.
What was the line you mentioned to me earlier? I thought that was really great, about the appointment.
Oh, where Britt said at the end, like, bitch, we don't take walk-ins. Make an appointment.
That was good stuff.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. So,
But-
this was a really good segment all the way around.
Yeah. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, you could see from a mile away that she was going to announce that she was cleared like last week, right?
Yeah.
And I saw people online laughing about it, and they're like, okay, so she couldn't get cleared to wrestle in WWE, so she goes to some quack doctor or whatever. And
Who knows? These motherfuckers act like they know
she's
shit.
probably
Who knows?
seen. I'm guessing she's probably seen a whole bunch of fucking doctors, and most of them have probably cleared her and been like, yeah, this is. I mean, if she's not gonna go out there and fuck around with her life, I don't think at this point. Like, why?
Yeah. Sometimes these wrestling fans act like they're so in the know, like they know these people and they know
Yeah.
behind the scenes stuff. Like, I don't know. Who knows? WWE clearly wouldn't do it. And so they didn't, and so she left. And shit, that happens. Happens
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. So next up, there was a Moxley promo. Masterful as always. He had William Regal in the ring with him, who was still pretty fucking intimidating looking, like even
Yeah.
at his age, right?
Yeah, he's got that. Yeah, we were talking about Samoa Joe, the gangster stuff. He's got the British kind of bully, soccer hooligan stuff, kind of, but a little bit more classy persona about him. And we learned in kayfabe a couple weeks ago, he keeps those brass knuckles in his pockets at all times, so that's good to know. So this was great from Moxley as always. Like we've called him, and a lot of people have called him this. He's the MVP of AEW. And his line about, he's looked the devil in his eyes and, you ain't it. It's just great stuff. And it's so effortless about it, too. And both of these guys, what makes Moxley and MJF such an interesting feud is that they have different, what's the word I'm looking for here? They got different vibes. to him, right? Where Moxley, at times, like in the promo he was last night, can be a little bit laid back and chill, right? He even dropped the casual, like, hey, I'm a multimillionaire and I'm all this stuff too, like, so don't kid yourself, you know what I mean? Where it's just it's a casualness, and you're like, that, you know, we know he doesn't drink now, but back in the day, that'd been a cool guy to get a beer with, right? But then at times that, you know, that knob gets cranked up to 11, and he's doing when MJF parried him, you know, Moxley does the shoulder thing, and he's like getting in this different zone. And then MJF has the same type of thing, right? Where he's the smart aleck. He is the kid with the silver spoon in his mouth, but also he can be incredibly funny and incredibly sarcastic. Even when you're supposed to hate him, you laugh at him. You're like, well, that's a fucking good line. So it's that mismatch, right? It's scarves versus leather jackets. It's easy, simple stuff, but when you do the easy, simple stuff well, it makes for good storytelling.
Yeah. I just don't see there's any way that they don't let him take some time off. I just keep going back to it. Like, I don't know.
I'd be shocked if Moxley walks out of the Prudential Center on the 19th with a title.
Yeah.
I would genuinely be shocked.
So at some point, well, just real quick, I want to touch on. I didn't write it down because I didn't remember exactly where it was in the show. But we see Ricky Starks backstage for a half second, and then
getting his head bounced off the garage door.
Yeah, and then he gets jumped by Lance Archer, who hasn't been on TV in 3 months. I guess he goes to Japan a lot though and wrestles over there and stuff. Like, I guess that's where he's been.
I don't know. Who knows with these? I mean, we don't know with AEW. Sometimes these guys just go off television with no kind of explanation given whatsoever.
So they did her boy wrong last night. And then the other thing that I didn't write down was Nyla Rose calling herself the TBS championship. Did you see that?
I did, yeah. Even the graphic has in quotation marks TBS champion.
That's so fucking good.
This is what. I wish they would do more. They could have done more with it. Now, I think they've done a pretty good job as it is, but I think it had a lot more legs. This is the kind of stuff Jade needs to kind of go to the next level. And I think Nyla has pulled something else out of her where it's not just, we know Jade is a physical specimen. We know she can whoop everybody's ass in the ring in that women's division. But that's it. You got to do more like that than to just be a champion. And so I think they've missed, a lot of comedic elements that they could have done here between the two of these women, because Nyla's probably not going to win at Full Gear. I don't know if Nyla's going to be the one that puts the one loss in Jade Cargill's record, right?
Yeah, because Nyla's been kind of non-existent for a while.
Yeah, they just kind of, and kudos to Nyla.
I kind of forgot about her, and they just brought her back recently.
Yeah, kudos to Nyla for taking this opportunity and make it. She's hilarious on Twitter, and she's made the most of this program. I just wish that there would have been a little bit more, because I think we could have seen more of Jade's personality come out. You know,
she's real flat on the mic.
She's got one note, right, and it's intense, and I'm gonna whoop your ass. Okay, it gets old after a while, though.
Yeah,
particularly when you have people like Saraya and Britt Baker, who are the top stars of that division. And when you look at just the promo skills between those two women and Jade, it's kind of night and day, right? But Jade, that's where she needs to get better at if she's going to ascend, because she has the potential to be that crossover star and be the biggest star in the women's division. But I don't think she's gotten a lot of opportunities to showcase that or to grow into that role at all.
So, quickly, Jamie Hayter and Sky Blue, you said you might want to touch on that for just a second.
I mean, the greatest women's wrestler in the world right now got to wrestle, so anytime I can talk about Jamie Hayter, I will take the opportunity. I would also be shocked if she doesn't come out of – let me rephrase that. I'm not going to be shocked. I'm going to be upset. She probably won't win come Full Gear, but I will be upset if she doesn't, because she's incredible. Like, everything about him, the same sort of stuff that I see with MJF, I see with Jamie Hayter, albeit on a little bit smaller scale. Like, I don't think Jamie has the potential to be the best women's wrestler ever. But in the ring, I've called her the Shawn Michaels of the women's division, and I do think that is true. The way she bumps, the way she moves around, even the creative way last night she got into her ripcord lariat, which I'm glad they're putting that thing over because she looks brutal when she hits it.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to, when Tony probably will, unfortunately, beat her at Full Gear, that's going to elevate Tony, too, because we have seen Jamie be a real threat in this division. So if Tony's able to overcome her, that'll be a big notch in Tony's belt as well.
Yeah.
Well, we also have this Thunder Rosa stuff. We don't know when she's going to come back.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, the curse of the interim belt is that we got to go back and do Thunder Rosa versus whoever has the interim belt, which I don't know.
I wish they wouldn't do it.
It'd
be like if you can't compete, you got to drop it.
Well, yeah, they should have, I think we've mentioned this a couple weeks ago at this point. They should have a rules section on AEW where you can go click on the website, see the rules section, and the top rule should be like if you can't defend your belt once in a 30-day calendar period, just like the NWA did, you're stripped of the belt. And that way you make it clear, you make it concrete. Thunder's hurt. She's going to be out 3 months. Boom, stripped of the title. She can't do it.
Yeah. So, for whatever reason, last night, the main event was Bryan Danielson versus Sammy Guevara, even though we're going to turn around and get this match again at the pay-per-view.
Well, it'll be a four-way, right? At the pay-per-view, it's Jericho, Claudio, Danielson, and Guevara.
Yeah. You're right.
But I wasn't disappointed by this match. But I do think it's probably one of Danielson's more lackluster matches he's had in AEW. Because he has had banger after banger since he's been in that company.
Well, let me say this first. The first, I guess you want to call it, his DQ that got Danielson the first victory, 2 out of 3, was Guevara throwing that chair at Danielson. And wasn't it Guevara throwing the chair at Matt Hardy that fucked Matt Hardy up so bad about a year ago?
Yeah.
And, because of the way it hit him.
Yeah.
And they're letting this man get out there and just fling a chair at somebody who's had a fucking dislocated retina before?
Well, I think and I'll need to go back and look this, I think that the way he threw it at Matt Hardy and the way he threw it at Danielson are two different ways. I think when he threw it at Hardy, the chair was completely horizontal, which meant the edge caught him. Whereas last night he threw it more vertical, which is just, the flat part of the chair.
Okay.
Danielson get his hands up and you hit him in the head that way, which is different.
Okay.
Yeah, the way Matt Hardy clearly was not ready for Guevara to throw the chair at him in that kind of way. And I think that's probably, that is probably why it busted up Hardy the way he did.
See, folks, this is why you listen, because I don't know about what I'm talking about.
I'll have to go back and watch. That might not be the case, but I think he threw it more as opposed to slinging it horizontal like that. He threw it more vertical.
I just react, and Patrick gets to tell me what the fuck is going on.
But that's why they do it, right? Guevara's the heel. You as the fan know the history of what he did to Matt Hardy. So now when Guevara throws the chair at Danielson, you come on here and you say, that motherfucker, what a piece of shit this guy is.
Well, so the crowd last night, there were two different times that I caught it. One was going to a break. They're like, fuck you, Sammy.
Yeah.
And then another time, he hit, I forgot what it was, hit some big fucking move, and it was great. And they're like, you still suck. You still suck. I was like, nobody likes this man right now.
No, which I wish they would. They need to capitalize on that in some kind of way. I don't know what that way is.
I think it's going to take somebody far smarter than me.
Or I think Sammy Guevara really is the biggest mystery in wrestling right now because he's clearly talented. He can do all the moves. The people legitimately cannot stand this guy. Like on a real, it's not even like the way that people sometimes will boo MJF because they're like, wink, wink, he's a heel. We're not on the joke, but we really like this guy. No, they're like, no, fuck Sammy. That dude's a piece of shit. And
part of it probably stems from the stuff with him and Kingston and then him and Andrade, because where the fuck has Andrade been since their incident?
And no doubt. I mean, it's 100% the reason.
I think people would much rather see Andrade come out and fucking put on a banger.
But that hatred that Sammy has, that you have to be able to do something with that. But I don't know what it is, which is wild to think about. I don't know if there's ever been. Well, we don't know. There's been cases like this.
Did people hate the Iron Sheik this much back in the day? You know, like it's wild as fuck.
But they're not doing anything with it, and I don't know what you do with it. It's a conundrum.
And they just parade him and fucking Ty Conti out. I'm like, nobody wants to see that.
I know it's the wrong kind of heat, but I think if you would have to lock some wrestling minds in a room, I think they could make this dude the biggest heel in wrestling. Yeah. I really do.
That's part of the problem right now is Tony Khan's trying to run it all himself, and
yeah,
we've said it before, like he needs people to bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, I mean, there's a way where if Sammy was under the thumb of Bill Watts, there'd be people trying to stab this motherfucker in Texas. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what you do with this guy. He's so talented, and yet people, they hate him, and you hope at some point that hatred doesn't turn to apathy, because that's even worse. And whereas they've done it before, right, where Sammy's hit like a Spanish fly, and nobody's reacted. So I do not know what happens.
Take a second to get on Twitter and see what people might have said to our wrestling prompt of the week. So I got a couple of them. The prompt for the week was, if you were a wrestler, what would your wrestling name be, and what would be your finishing move? Right?
Yeah.
So Blaine Duncan says, "Too tough!" ! I've always been fond of a DDT though. And then the Jeff on Twitter at
like
the
too
Jeff,
tough, like TWO,
TOO tough, like he can't come with a name. I think as well. Too tough.
I thought that was his name. My bad. I was like,
that is
too
funny.
Tough. Was he like he's gonna be a rapper or something?
I'm gonna call him Too Tough when I text him.
Too Tough, yeah.
So the Jeff responds and says that Blaine Duncan would be B-Dunk, and he does a two-handed tomahawk hammer from the top turnbuckle. That's a good one. And
straight like it's 1970s wrestling.
Right. And then Jeff also says, "I always find the name DDT interesting. From Wikipedia, rumors abound as to what the letters DDT supposedly stood for, including Damien's Death Trap, Damien's Death Touch, Damien's Dinner Time, all named after Jake's pet python Damien, or Double Diarrhea Tightrope. Drape, drop, takedown, drop downtown, downward dome thrust, and death drop technique." I can't fucking read all these DDTs in a row. When asked what DDT meant, Jake once famously replied, "The end." The abbreviation itself originally came from the chemical dichlorodiphenotrichloroethane, a notorious that's all one word, a notorious pesticide, as stated during shoot interviews and Jake's Pick Your Poison DVD. Well, that's all good info. I have no desire to ever have to read that word on the podcast.
I think is DDT outlawed? I think it's outlawed now. Maybe it's not. I thought it was. Not the move DDT.
Oh, I was gonna say
the pesticide thing. I think it is.
Maybe so. So yeah, that's all the responses we got this week. Blue Gillen, you let us down, buddy. You always respond. Chase Gilmer, buddy, you let us down.
They were busy this week.
Yeah, y'all were probably tied up. We still appreciate y'all.
Thanks for everybody. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for.
So, what would your name be? Have you given it thought? Because I actually did have a name, so it's not like I have to think about anything.
So yeah, okay. I'm a large fella, right?
Yeah.
I want to tell you a story, dude, that I knew back in college. Worked next to a McDonald's back in the day, right? And he rolls into McDonald's early one morning, and he's standing there looking at the board, trying to decide. The guy in front of him, I say, "Sir, can I take your order?" He says, "My man's looked like he had just fallen out of the bed," right? And he goes, "Yeah, I want to let me get a big breakfast and an orange drink." And the lady says, "So you want the big breakfast with an orange juice?" He says, "No, I said orange drink. I need the big breakfast and the orange drink." So Big Breakfast was a joke with us for a while, right?
Yeah.
So I think my name would be Big Breakfast. I haven't really thought about my move yet. But it would be probably some sort of fat man splash or something,
I was
right?
gonna say, being a large fella, there's like a choke slam, there's like the Vader bomb. You get to pick from like 4 or 5.
Right. Yeah.
the Bonsai drop, Yokozuna, the Vader splash,
Yeah.
something like that.
I might just fucking lay on my back on top of you and ride around for a little bit. Because you ain't getting up, son. I'm a hoss.
Oh,
so tell the folks, we might have mentioned your name on here before, right? I don't remember.
Maybe, I can't remember. So I wrestled under the name Mr. Ego, which it wasn't my pick. It was just what the wrestling trainer was like. You're gonna debut in 2 weeks, and we're gonna call you Mr. Ego, and you're gonna kind of be like a smart aleck young kid, because I was by far the youngest guy on the roster, and I was fucking 18, and I was like, all right, cool.
Fucking Sammy Guevara out there.
Yeah, basically, I was like, all right, Mr. Ego, that's fine.
A little punk.
And then my finishing move was, and Britt Baker actually does it. It was where you kind of set somebody up for a fisherman suplex, you hook the leg, but you turn it into a spinning neck breaker. And so I kind of had some ways to get into it, and I would hit it real fast, and it would look kind of vicious. And I tried some other things. I tried like a flipping leg drop, kind of from outside to inside. I hit it successfully a couple times on some dudes in the matches, and then one dude, my ass just landed on his face, and I was like, all right, well, I'm not gonna do this move anymore. Then I just busted homeboy's nose, so I want to try to protect who I'm working with. So, yeah, that was Mr. Ego.
Mr. Ego.
Yeah.
We keep meaning to find some of those clips of you and put them on our Instagram.
We got to get them, yeah. We'll have to go. When I first wrestled, when I first debuted, I had like an orange Under Armour thing and like some Texas Longhorn stuff, and they billed me. I was billed from Austin, Texas, and all kinds of stuff. I went through the little iteration. Then at the final version, I had the white track suit and the singlet and the rip-away pants, the sucker, all that stuff that we talked about. That was my last.
I forgot about the sucker.
That was the last iteration of Mr. Ego. Yeah. So.
I love it.
Yep.
Well, y'all, as always, thanks for listening and hanging out with us for the week. Next week, hopefully, will be a little more exciting with the lead up to the pay-per-view. I don't think they've named a lot of the matches for next week. I think Friday Rampage should be pretty fun this week.
I think is it live this week?
I believe so.
So it's kind of weird. They've tried to make Rampage a bigger thing where I think half of them now are live, which brings a different energy to it for sure. Because they gotta make that show mean something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I know this Friday they've got Cage and Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus are all going to face off. Square off, face off, not square off, but a couple other things they mentioned on the show I think are going to end up being pretty fun. Don't we get Jade and Nyla on Friday? Or is that next Wednesday?
I think Jade and Nyla's at the pay-per-view, right? They announced it at Full Gear.
Fuck, there was so much going on.
Dante Martin, his Eliminator tournament match, I think.
That's right.
It's Friday against, was it Brian Cage?
Yeah.
How the fuck? Whatever. We're gonna keep going.
We'll get into that next week.
Dante Martin has not won a match. Somehow he's in the Eliminator tournament, but like Wardlow's not in the Eliminator tournament, and neither is Miro. Where's Miro? Is Miro dead? What's he doing?
Who fucking knows? What are we doing?
AEW needs these stars to come back.
Yeah,
we need Adam Cole to come back.
We need Andrade.
Well, Andrade probably won't be coming back. Andrade's probably.
You think so?
No, I think Andrade is gonna sit at home until they release him.
I mean, they teased Malachi last week, so maybe we get Malachi.
Malachi will be back good. Adam Cole coming back.
Clearly, the Elite are going to be at Full Gear in some capacity.
Yeah, we didn't talk about that.
There was the tease again.
Why not just say it? Why not just go ahead and announce the match? Hey, we all know why the Elite don't have the titles anymore. We ain't said it on our program, but you all know.
Yeah.
Now they're going to get their match at Full Gear against Death Triangle.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe there'll be some sort of storyline Wednesday to clear that up, but
it probably won't make sense. So they should just announce it anyway.
Well, y'all, we appreciate you. Holler at us on Twitter and Instagram at Alabama Slam Pod. Rate us and review us on Apple Podcasts. That would mean a lot. It'll help get some more people finding us. We are terrible at promotion and doing, let's just say, the bare minimum on Instagram. Instagram just takes some time sometimes, and we both work a lot. We both got a lot of things going on to really help us out. We'll try to get a little better at it. Patrick's mostly handling the Twitter these days. He's doing a good job with that, keeping some discussions going. Yeah, man, just follow our network of friends and podcasters and writers at the Alabama Take on Twitter and Instagram, and then you can follow the Alabama Take on Facebook as well. Lots of fun stuff happening over there. Lots of different podcasts, sports, Star Wars, books, pop culture, all that popping off over there. And yeah, we'll holler at y'all next week.
Later, guys.